Hi, I'm Jack, and welcome back because after waiting for a few weeks to make this movie review, I'm going to give you guys a spoiler-free review of Ghostbusters Afterlife. It is directed by Jason Reitman, the son of Ivan Reitman, who directed Ghostbusters 1 and 2, and it stars McKenna Grace, Finn Wolfhard, Carrie Coon, Paul Rudd, and many more in this fourth film in the Ghostbusters franchise. And before we get started, don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is down below at the bottom of the screen and in the description below, so don't forget to do that while you're at it. And like I said before, it is a spoiler-free review. I know this movie's been out for 3 weeks now, and I'm late to the party with this, but I'm not going to spoil anything about this movie, so you are safe to watch this video if you haven't. And with that said, let's get started. Afterlife follows a single mother, played by Carrie Coon, and her two children as they move to a new town in the middle of nowhere, starting fresh as they soon discover that they have a connection to one of the members of the original Ghostbusters, and they discover their legacy and they must pick up the mantle. I thought Ghostbusters Afterlife was an absolute blast from beginning to end. This is easily my second favorite movie in the series since the original film. It is very heartfelt. It's fun, and I was surprised by this movie. I was looking forward to this movie when they first announced it, but I was blown away by this movie. It was a whole lot of fun. And kicking off the positives, I thought the acting was great. I really liked all of the cast members in this movie, from Paul Rudd to McKenna Grace to Carrie Coon and Finn Wolfhard. And just the whole crew was really great in this movie, and the new characters were just really relatable, and I could connect with them, especially McKenna Grace, who I think is the standout of this entire film. I really enjoyed her character and how she pieces together that they had a connection with the Ghostbusters legacy, and to just see her just piece all this together and have the story go into motion. Really dug her character, and she was fantastic as an actress in this movie. And Paul Rudd is hysterical in this movie. Of course, I love Paul Rudd in the Ant-Man movies and some of the other stuff he's done. But if you love just comedic timing Paul Rudd, which is just Paul Rudd, you're going to love him in this movie. I wish we got more of him, but for when he's on screen, I love what they did with him. There are some really funny moments in this movie that involves Paul Rudd, and just his reaction and his comedic timing to all of this is perfect. Absolutely loved him. Finn Wolfhard, I did enjoy. I do really like him as Mike Wheeler on Stranger Things, and I really liked how he's a Ghostbuster character in this movie as a lead, and I thought he did good. I really liked his scenes with the character that he had a crush on in this movie, and I thought they were nice, and I thought he was good in this film. And Carrie Coon was great as the mother of this movie, just knowing how she conveys just being a mother and just having to deal with the fact that her father was one of the original Ghostbusters, and just how she ties into this story and all that. I really enjoyed it. I thought the actors were great, and even some surprises I thought were fantastic. And all around, I thought just the movie was great when it comes to the acting. It's really good. The visual effects look fantastic. And just when you see how the ghosts look in this movie, and how a lot of the marshmallows look, and especially like all the things that you see throughout this movie, they look really great. None of it looks weird. None of it looks out of place. None of it looks off. It all looks really great. And they look just as good as, of course, visuals from the original Ghostbusters, even though that is an older movie, which still holds up to this day. The visual effects look really great in this movie, especially in the third act of this movie. It looks terrific. And I was glued to the screen whenever they were catching ghosts in the movie. Another thing I love about the original Ghostbusters is the campy tone and the humor. Because one of the things I loved about the originals was that Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis, they were all very great when it comes to the humor and the comedic timing. The comedic timing in the original was just spot on. And I really liked how in this movie, the comedic timing was still really great in this movie. It captures the heart of the original movie better than Ghostbusters 2 and even the 2016 movie. I absolutely laughed whenever there was a humor because it was timed so well, and especially with the actors that they have in this movie, it lands really well. And I love how campy it is because, again, I do love the campy nature of that first movie, aside from the horror element because they're dealing with ghosts. And I just really dug the campiness of it. It's fun. It's not overly campy, but when it's campy, it's done well. It's not too over the top, and it blends well with even the more darker, mysterious aspects of the movie, which comes from the Ghostbusters franchise. So I really liked the humor in this movie, just like I did with the original, and so as the campy nature of it all. The pacing in this movie is great. The first movie is also very well paced from start to finish, and it's only like an hour and 40 to 50 minutes long. And this movie is also very well paced from the opening sequence of this movie all the way into the third act and all that. The pacing is great. Never once did I feel like there was an unnecessary story or there was just an unnecessary character or things are moving slowly before or after a certain point in time. No, it is so well paced, and I just loved it because from start to finish, it was able to tell its story, develop all these characters, tell the story that it wants to, and just try to place all of this in the timeline of the original Ghostbusters canon with those first two movies. And I never felt bored. I never felt like it was slow. I never felt rushed or dragged. It was all very well done. It's a well-paced movie, and that is just great because I love a good well-paced movie. The cinematography here is really good as well. There are some really great shots in this movie, especially in the third act. The landscape shots of the town or the house that they live in with all that land. There are some great cinematography shots to be had there. So that is another plus to this movie. And another thing that I absolutely loved about this movie is the third act, because there's a lot of fan servicey moments in this movie. It's kind of like Star Wars The Force Awakens, but for Ghostbusters, at least for me. And I love The Force Awakens, and I still do. But with Ghostbusters Afterlife, I absolutely loved a lot of these fan service moments. There are things that happen in this movie that, for me, I couldn't help but just have a little smile on my face. And I sat there just absolutely happy with what they do in the third act, and it's so fun. And a Ghostbusters fan is going to absolutely adore this third act of this movie. It feels like this is a love letter to the franchise and to the first movie, and it's because it's also the best movie since that first movie. And they did all of it so well, and we know with fan service, you want to place it right. And luckily with this movie, they had such a great story and such great new characters that when the fan service stuff happens, it feels earned, it's deserved, it's done well. It doesn't feel like it's overused or not needed and all that. No, it works so well, and it's just such a great way to cap off this movie, and especially to get into the third act of things. I thought the fan service, I loved it. Certain surprise appearances, which I will not name, but most of you have a good idea of who. I absolutely loved that a lot. I was just, the whole theater clapped and cheered when that happened, and I just sat there riveted because I loved what they did there. And another thing I will list is that this is also the most emotional film in the entire franchise. The first movie is very comedic and upbeat. I haven't seen 2 and 2016 Ghostbusters in a while, but this movie has a whole lot of heart. It's the most heartfelt movie of the 4, and it's also the most emotional because Harold Ramis, who plays Egon, passed away back in 2014, and so this movie does a really great tribute in his memory. And whenever a lot of these moments happen in Ghostbusters, it just feels very touching and it feels really emotional, and it's done right. It doesn't feel like it ruins the moment or anything. All the emotional moments in this movie are done so well. And I cannot commend Jason Reitman enough because he was a great director to do this project, especially picking up going into his father's footsteps, because his father did the first two movies and now he does this one. And I thought he was great. I could not imagine anybody else doing this movie but Jason. I wonder what that must have been like for him to make this movie happen. And he did a phenomenal job directing this movie, and he deserves all that respect. I do have one issue though. I do feel like at times that it feels derivative of the original movie. I watched the original one again right before I saw this movie, and I couldn't help but feel like there are times where I'm like, this is kind of following those similar beats, and even the third act with all the stuff that happens, it feels similar to what you've seen in that first movie. But it doesn't bother me as much because you still have those character developments and you see them grow and change. And because I liked these new characters a lot and just everything else that has happened, I couldn't help but be like, this doesn't bother me as much because I really enjoyed everything else this movie offered aside from that. So while this movie can be a little bit of a retreading common ground from that first movie, I still enjoyed this movie a lot. It doesn't bother me, and I absolutely had a blast with this movie as a whole. In conclusion, Ghostbusters Afterlife was one of the biggest surprises of the year, and if you love the franchise, you're going to have an absolute blast with this movie. And in the end, I'm going to give Ghostbusters Afterlife an A. And I highly recommend you go see this movie if it plays in a theater near you. For Ghostbusters fans, it's going to be an absolute blast. Have you seen Ghostbusters Afterlife? Let me know down below in the comments section. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Are you a big fan of this franchise, or you're new to this, or have you not seen any of the movies yet? If so, I'd love to hear what you guys thought of this movie down below. And I would like to say, just to get this out of the way, if I had to rank every single one of the movies, it would be Ghostbusters, the original, then Ghostbusters Afterlife, and then Ghostbusters 2, and then Ghostbusters 2016. That's my ranking of the 4 movies we've had thus far. And yeah, I really dug this movie. It was probably one of the bigger surprises I've seen all year, and it's absolutely worth seeing, and I hope you guys check it out when you can. And those are my thoughts on Ghostbusters Afterlife. What are your thoughts on this movie? I'd love to hear it down below in the comment section, and thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button, and stay tuned for more.
Go, go, go!